Hello, I'm Mike, and this is Will. We are the Tabletop Donkeys.
Hello.
And we're bringing you issue 26 of Age of Sigmar Water Realms magazine today. And this issue we got a set of Azyrite Ruins, so we can finally start adding some terrain to our game set in the Realm of Life. And as always, before we have a look at this issue, if you want to skip straight to the battle report, there'll be a time code in the description. Heading into the issue now, first up we have some background on some more of the various storm hosts. In particular, this focuses on the Tempest Lords, and it also goes into the relationship between the storm hosts and the various mortals who inhabit the many mortal realms. A lot of these storm hosts rely on mortal artisans to build their fortresses and maintain them, that sort of thing. And also how some of these storm hosts are viewed. The Celestial Vindicators are famed for their bloody reputation. The Hammers of Sigmar are revered throughout the realms and that sort of thing. There was some backstory on the Sylvaneth, so we haven't seen these mentioned before when we learned about the Realm of Life. They were planted by Alariel, the Ever Queen, and they're effectively sort of the tree plant people who inhabit the Realm of Life. Well, they have now spread. Talks about how they're all linked, can all talk to each other and that sort of thing. Various living woods that inhabit the Realm of Life. And then we have a short story about some Tempest Lords, Stormcast, fighting the forces of Khorne in the Realm of Fire. And then we have the build guide for the Azyrite Ruins. You can assemble it in different ways, but this way they tell you matches the printed terrain. There's also the way I did it. And then finally we get on to painting, so starting off with a white base coat. Washing it all over with our Agrex O'Shea we got in the last issue, which easily picks out all the details. Then dry brushing it with white, and that covers all the white areas. Painting all the bricks in grey, dry brushing them with white as well, and then washing them, so it's slightly different order. So it still looks pretty good at this phase. There's still a lot of details, especially on the little pile and the wood to do, but it's pretty much complete at that point. So that quick overview over, we'll be on to our game for this issue.
Before we get on to our game for this issue, we have to learn the rules for the new terrain that we've received. These rules, broadly speaking, are the same as we had when we had the terrain on the graveyard board, in that if you want to move up and over a piece of terrain, you have to subtract the vertical distance from your movement, both up and down. But there's just a little bit of clarification here, because the ruin we have has a second floor, explains about unit cohesion when models are on different levels, and basically they have to be still within an inch on a horizontal level, but they can be up to 6 inches apart vertically. Also reiterates that you can't just walk through terrain, so if you want to go around the ruin, you do have to measure in one direction and then change direction and continue to move. Over the page there's a couple of examples. It also shows here that if your model can fly, then you can ignore vertical distance, which again we've seen before, but in the case of the upper floor of the ruins it means that, for example, the prosecutor can just stand on top of it without having to subtract any movement. And there's also a bit here about the gate that we got with the Sigmarite mausoleum scenery. It now clarifies that if your base is large enough to fit through the gate, you can walk through it without penalty, but larger units, like for example the ballista, can't do that because they wouldn't be able to fit through the gate. This battle finally features the Evocator-Prime that we got with issue 20, who has not actually had a war scroll up to this point, so this is the first we've seen of the abilities of the Evocators. Evocators are an elite Stormcast unit. You can see they have 3 wounds each, bravery of 8. The Evocators we get with the magazine have Tempest Blade and Storm Stave. They have 4 attacks which hit on 3s, win on 3s with a rend of -1 and 1 damage. The Evocator-Prime, which is actually the one model we do have at the moment, has an extra attack, so that's actually 5 attacks. They have an ability called Celestial Lightning Arc, which has a dual effect. You can reroll save rolls of 1 against missile weapons, and in addition, every time the unit attacks, after all of its attacks have been made, pick one enemy unit within 3 inches of the unit, roll 2 dice for every model in the Evocator unit, and for every 4+, that enemy suffers a mortal wound. That obviously scales depending on how many models you have in the unit. In addition, if there are 2 or more models in the Evocator unit, then the unit is a wizard. They only have 1 spell they can cast, which is called Empower. It has a casting value of 6. If it's successful, you can pick a Redeemer keyword or Sacrosanct keyword unit within 12 inches of the caster. Until your next hero phase, they can reroll failed wound rolls. That won't be relevant in this issue because we only have 1 Evocator at the moment, but in future, when we get some more, then they'll be able to use that spell. And on the back, as usual, we just have some examples and explanations. So the Evocator-Prime getting an extra attack, reroll and save rolls of 1 against missile attacks, the mortal wounds from their lightning arc, and then how the Empower spell works. We also have a full war scroll for the Dread Scythe Harridans, which also appear in this issue. There's only one thing here that we haven't seen before. I think all their attacks and stats we've seen before, which is their Harrowing Shriek. Enemy models within 3 inches of the unit have to subtract 1 from their hit rolls, unless they have a bravery characteristic of 6 or more, so that actually isn't going to come up very often against Stormcast, because almost everything in the Stormcast list has a bravery of 7 or higher. And just as a quick recap, the Slasher Crone has an extra attack, and when they roll an unmodified 6 to wound, they do damage 2 instead of damage 1. And on the back, just some examples, and they do actually use a Free Guild Guard model as an example here for the Howling Shriek, because they do have a bravery of 5, so it would be at -1 to hit. Now we are on to our game. So Xandria Azurebolt and Anastasia Starstrike and her Sequitors are traipsing through the jungle along with the Evocator-Prime Aetherspark. As they enter a clearing, they sense the presence of evil and are confronted by the Briar Queen. But just here, there's a little section about how to add the terrain we've got to the battle mat. As will become quite clear in a moment, they just go on the mat on the places where there are printed versions of the same thing. It also says a little bit about each piece, so the large ruin is a significant obstacle. There's a small bit of wall which might slow things down, and the little pile of rubble which it says has no effect on the games, but it's just there to look good. And the battle plan, Battle in the Forest. I think we've already had Battle in the Forest, but so this I guess is Battle in the Forest Part 2. We've got, on the Stormcast side, Xandria Azurebolt, 3 Sequitors and the Evocator-Prime, facing off against the Briar Queen, the Thorns of the Briar Queen, and 10 Dreadscythe Harridans, so we get to use the 5 we got with issue 21 in addition to the ones we've seen before. Territories for each side are as usual, but of course we do have the terrain added now, so that'll make it look a little bit more interesting. Stormcast Eternals get the first turn of the first battle round, and as usual, the game ends when one side has been wiped out. So that's it, very straightforward. We'll have a look at the battlefield and then get into the game. So here is our battlefield setup. We'll have a look at the deployment in the moment, but you will obviously notice the terrain pieces that have now been added. So down here towards the Nighthaunt end we have the large ruin and a little wall. These are over the bits that match them. And over by the Stormcast, a little pile of rubble. Stormcast deployment is very simple. We've got 3 Sequitors at the front, Evocator-Prime on the flank, and Xandria Azurebolt behind. And the Nighthaunt, we have the 10 Dreadscythe Harridans, then the Briar Queen at the back, and her Thorns on the left there. But the Stormcast get the first turn of battle round 1, so we'll be on to the first Stormcast turn. In my hero phase I gain a command point. I'm not going to use any of Xandria's spells because they're not in range, and even her special Spirit Storm spell won't have any effect because none of the Nighthaunt will be within 18 inches for its secondary effects anyway. There's no shooting or charging or anything, so we'll be on to the Nighthaunt turn.
So, in my hero phase, I'm going to try and cast Howling Vortex. Casting value of 7. Oh, 7.
I might as well try and unbind that because I am within 30, so I just need to roll an 8 or more. Nope, 5, so it does go off.
Yeah, so I get to pick a spot the Briar Queen can see, which you can definitely see that spot. The only unit within 6 inches is going to be the Sequitors.
Yeah, it's very close. I should have been a bit more careful with my movement.
Yeah, and if I have to roll 2d6, and I need to roll either a double or higher than a 5, I believe. So we get a 10, or an 11, sorry, higher than 5.
Which is their movement, so they take a mortal wound.
And their movement rate is halved until my next hero phase.
And we will put the mortal wound on that one.
And then we're just going to move up so that we're more than 18 inches away from Xandria, so she can't cast any spells less next turn.
But that's it for the Nighthaunt turn, so we'll be rolling off for the second battle round. Rolling off, roll a 3.
Roll a 5. I think I'll choose to go first, because if I don't, I think the Stormcast will actually retreat out of spell range, so I'm going to go first and try and cast spells before they do. Straight off the bat, I'm going to try and cast Howling Vortex again. Using a 7, only getting a 6, so it doesn't... I think we're just going to hold position because we're out of charge range.
So we'll be on to the Stormcast turn. My hero phase, okay, command point. We're going to go for Spirit Storm. It's not going to be in range to do any mortal wounds, but if I can make the Nighthaunt subtract 1 from their charge rolls, then that might be useful. So we're needing a 7, getting a 7.
Might as well try and unbind that, needing an 8. Ooh, good start. Yep.
Yeah, getting that unbind. So it doesn't go off. Then I've moved up a little bit, but I don't want to get too close because the Harridans have a really long move, so I don't want to give them an easy charge. But that's it for my turn. On to the next battle round. 4 for me.
3 for me.
I think I'm going to make the Nighthaunt go first, because if I move forward, I'm just going to be charged.
I'm going to try and cast a Howling Vortex again. So, needing a 7, getting an 11.
I'm going to use my Void Storm scroll to automatically unbind that, because I don't want to take mortal wounds on everybody.
And we're going to move forward. The Harridans have moved up there 8 inches. They can just fly directly over the ruins. And the Thorns and the Briar Queen have come over here.
Briar Queen's not in range to shoot.
So we're going to do the charge phase. So I made a slight adjustment to my movement for the Briar Queen, so she's within 6 of the Harridans, so they can re-roll a failed charge if I need to. And then the Harridans will charge. I need at least a 6 to get someone within range. Oh, there's a double 1, so I'm going to re-roll that. Nope.
Oh dear, only a 4. That's going to be the end of the Nighthaunt turn, so on to the Stormcast turn. In my hero phase, I gain a command point. Xandria is going to use Mystic Shield. I don't want to use Spirit Storm because I don't want to do a wound to the Harridans, because if I do that, there'll be under 10 models and then my Spirit Flask won't be quite as effective. So Mystic Shield needs a 6 to cast. I'm getting an 8.
Might as well try and unbind that. You need a 9. Oh, I do unbind that.
And for my movement, Xandria's going to come all the way down here, and the other Stormcaster going over there. I wonder if you can see what's about to happen. There's obviously no shooting, so we're on to the charge phase. I will start with Xandria because she's the important one. And she gets a 6, that's enough. She comes down there, and then we'll do the Evocator-Prime and the Sequitors as well. The Evocator-Prime, there's a 7, I'll roll the Sequitors at the same time. They get a 4, which is not much, but it is enough. And they'll all charge in like this. We're maintaining a 3-inch distance away from Xandria, and also one of the Sequitors, basically that wall there is going to impede my movement because I didn't roll a very high charge. A pile-in move is not actually long enough to move up and over the wall, so he's going to stand behind to us to avoid bringing the Thorns into combat. At the start of the combat phase I have 2 things to do. The first is the Sequitors. Well, actually we're going to do Xandria's Spirit Flasks first, so she's going to shatter all 3 of them, doing 3 mortal wounds to herself. The Evocator-Prime is out of range, but the Harridans are definitely in. Because there are 10 or more of them, they take 3d3 mortal wounds rather than just 3. So rolling 3d3, we get a total of 7, so that's 7 Harridans dead. The other thing at the start of the fight phase is the Sequitors are going to put power to their weapons. But I'm going to pick the Evocator-Prime to fight first. There's 5 attacks to hit on 3s, because it's a prime, 4 hits. And also wound on 3s. There were 1.
4+ save for Harridan. You.
Then the Nighthaunt gets picked, which means the Harridans get to go.
So we're going to pile in around the Sequitors to get away from Xandria. 7 attacks hitting on 4s for a whopping 3. Wounding on 3s, and 6s do 2 damage. Well, they're all wounded at least.
And they are rend -1, so these would be 5+ saves. Made 1, failed 2, that's 2 damage. So this one who's on a wound is killed, and we'll put the wound on the Prime. Then we'll pick the Sequitors to fight, and the one who's not in combat will pile in. We've got 2 attacks from the Great Mace hitting on 3s, but re-rolling. And we've got 1 hit and 1 6, so that's 1 plus a d3. That's only 2 hits in total. Wounding on 3s, 1.
4+. Oh, I made it.
And the Prime has 3 attacks on 3s, but re-rolling. 3 hits. Wounding on 3s, 2.
4+. Made both.
Then I can pick Xandria because she charged, so she's still eligible to be picked, even though she's not within 3 inches of an enemy unit, and she can pile in her 3 inches. So she'll pile into there just to get a bit closer to the fighting.
And I'm going to spend a command point so that the Harridans don't flee.
Yep, they're within 6 inches of the Briar Queen. But that's the end of the battle round. On to a new one. Rolling off. Oh, I got a 6.
No, I didn't.
So I will go first. In the hero phase, we will try and do Spirit Storm. Needing a 7 to cast, getting an 8.
Yeah, going to try and unbind that, needing a 9. No.
So all Nighthaunt units take a mortal wound. And then we're on to movement. The Sequitors will stay put, and the Evocator-Prime and Xandria have advanced forwards. I have no shooting, so we'll be straight on to the charge phase, and we will start with the Evocator-Prime. He rolls a 7. I realised I actually forgot the Evocator-Prime's mortal wounds from his Celestial Lightning Arc in the previous combat phase. It's too late to go back and fix it now, but I will remember that for future combats. So he charges in round the back into combat with the Briar Queen, and now Xandria will charge as well. She also rolls a 7, and that's enough to get Xandria into combat with the Briar Queen as well. At the start of the combat phase, I think I'll do Powers and Shields with the Sequitors, and then I will pick Xandria Azurebolt to fight first. To attack the Briar Queen, she has 3 attacks. They hit on 3s, 2 hits, and wound on 3s, 2 wounds.
2 4+ saves, made on failed 1.
D3 damage, just 1.
Here's the Briar Queen, and she'll attack the Evocator-Prime. One attack hitting on a 3. Of course it missed.
I'll do the Sequitors next because I don't think many of the Chain Rasps can get into the Evocator-Prime. Attacking the Harridans, we'll start with the Prime. 3 attacks on 3s, they all hit. And wound on 3s, 2.
4+. Yeah, failed 1.
That leaves the Chain Rasps to go for the Nighthaunt.
And we're just going to pile into Xandria Azurebolt, so we can all get in on her. We've got 11 attacks hitting on 4s. 3. Wounding on 4s, you're on 1s. Ooh, you roll that 1. Hey, 3 wounds.
3+ saves, but she said she failed 2. She only got 2 wounds left, so Xandria Azurebolt actually gets killed. That leaves just the Evocator-Prime left, and you hit the Briar Queen. You've got 5 attacks hitting on 3s, 4 hits, Wounding on 3s. Can we do a bit better than 1 this time? Oh, no, we can't. We've still only got 1 wound.
4+. Made it.
And then, won't forget it this time, Celestial Lightning Arc. I roll 2 dice for every Evocator model within 3 inches of an enemy unit that I pick, and on 4+ it takes mortal wounds. I'll pick the Briar Queen, 2 dice. No 4s. But that is the end of my turn, so we're on to the Nighthaunt turn.
In the hero phase, getting a command point, I'm going to cast Arcane Bolt. Needing a 5. Just. So I'm going to pick the Sequitors. I think before we were playing it, say it always hit the closest unit, but as per the last issue, you can actually choose the target, so I'm actually going to kill off that Sequitor.
Yeah.
In the shooting phase, the Briar Queen will scream at the Evocator-Prime. 3 shots hitting on 3s. They will hit. And wounding on 3s. Only 1 wound.
It's -3 rend, so my 4+ save means I could only get 1. I would be able to re-roll 1s on my save, but yeah, the rend's enough.
Roll a 7.
Yeah, I can't roll a 7. So the Evocator-Prime is down to 2 wounds, and we're on to the fight phase, because there won't be any charges.
And I'm going to do the Thorns first. And they can all get in.
Yeah.
So we've got 11 attacks hitting on 4s. But we got 1 better than last time with 4 hits.
It's improving.
And wounding on 4s, we run 1s. Wow.
Okay, so 4+ saves for an Evocator. Failed 1, so it is down to 1 wound, still alive, just. It does mean we get to hit back, and I'm going to put my attacks on the Briar Queen before she gets to strike. 5 attacks on 3s, 4 hits again. Can we do better than 1 wound? No, we can do 0 wounds with a quadruple 2. Can I do mortal wounds? I'll put them on the Briar Queen, so 2 dice on 4s. Nope, no mortal wounds either. Wow. So that leaves just the Briar Queen to attack.
1 attack hitting on 3, it hits. Wounds on a 3, it does. So -2.
So a 6+ save. Nope. Oh, so there's Evocator-Prime dead as well. And let's see also the end of the battle round. So rolling off 1. Yeah.
Don't go at 1. Oh.
You've got a 1. So obviously I'm going to go first. The last remaining Sequitor will move up in a valiant attempt to try and take out all these ghosts, and then it will charge. A 6 is just enough. We're getting into base contact with the Briar Queen. At the start of the fight phase, I'll do power to weapons. I can't actually do power to shields because I haven't got any left in the unit, and then attack the Briar Queen. 2 attacks hitting on 3s, rerolling. Fails. No, 2 normal hits, wounding on 3s. 1.
4+ save. Failed. She's got 1 wound left. I'll do the Briar Queen first. 1 attack hitting on a 3. Missed. And then all the Thorns can get in, so we've got 11 attacks hitting on 4s. 6. And wounding on 4s, rerolling 1s.
1.
4 wounds again.
4+ saves. Failed 2. That's the last Stormcast model dead.
Yay.
Didn't look like it for a while, but we have a win for the Nighthaunt. So that's been our game, and we'll give you our thoughts on all that now. So that was the playthrough from issue 26 of Mortal Realms magazine. How do you think that went?
I suppose, even though I guess I won, which is the first time for a while as a Nighthaunt, but I think that's more because your Evocator-Prime did exceptionally poorly.
As it was, if he'd managed to get more than, I think, 2 wounds out of 12 hits.
He probably would have killed the Briar Queen. Whereas my Harridans, to be honest, I was genuinely mad that I failed that charge.
That was exceptionally unlucky.
Yeah,
needing a 6 and then failing twice.
I mean, it probably turned out to be a more interesting game, even it was very annoying. But
yeah, so we actually, off camera, we actually rolled to see what would have happened if the Harridans had made that charge, and they basically, you still rolled appallingly, and they basically went straight through the Stormcast.
Yeah, I killed Xandria, did 2 wounds to the Evocator, I think killed a Sequitor as well. But I think new model syndrome affected the Evocator-Prime and the Harridans to an extent.
Yeah.
Those 5 new Harridans dragged the whole side down.
Well, actually, the Harridans didn't do that well the first time they turned up either.
No.
I mean, they're another unit that hits on 4s, so it can swing badly, but
the extra rends and the higher speed and the potential for 2 damage, I'd still take rather Harridans than Glade Race. And they have that extra ability, which is not going to be handy against the Stormcast, I imagine. But it's probably handy against, especially like big horde armies.
Yeah, anything with Bravery 5 on its basic troops are going to struggle to hit.
Well, even Bravery 6, because the Nighthaunt eventually get an ability where enemy units have -1 Bravery, if you're within 6 inches of one, I think, because they're spooky. And the Evocator-Prime did really badly, but he is 1 man, but part of a larger unit, and it's a bit like judging the Prosecutor on his own. And obviously you need 2 of them to get their spell, which is probably fairly handy for things like Liberators and probably the Evocators themselves.
Because they have a lot of attacks each. 4 attacks each or 5 on the Prime is pretty good.
It's pretty crazy for a single, not a non-character model.
And then there's their Lightning Arc as well, which, rerolling ones for saves against missile units isn't going to be that handy against Nighthaunt. But when you have a unit of 3 of them, being able to do potentially up to 6 mortal wounds, in addition to all their attacks, means they can really cause some damage.
I mean, they only have a 4+ save, but they still have 3 wounds as well.
I'm looking forward to getting more of them and trying them out. And of course, I guess we can't not mention Xandria Azurebolt's Sacrificial Charge again, which, again, that only happened because you failed your charge, which is really unlucky.
You probably wouldn't have done it because you would have blown up your army with it.
Exactly. If you'd made your charge, I would have been right in the middle of them, and I don't want to do 3 mortal wounds because that would kill the Evocator-Prime at a Sequitor and a half. But because I was able to do that, totally obliterated the Harridans. I did roll all right on my 3d3, to be fair.
And I suppose we should talk about that. Arcane Bot allows you to pick a target. I can't remember how it was in earlier games. Have to go back and check whether it was like in 40k where it hits the closest unit.
Yeah, I feel like the magazine, when we first introduced Arcane Bolt, said that it hit the closest unit because it didn't give us a range for Arcane Bolt for ages. Yeah. So maybe it said it hits the closest unit so that you can't just target any unit on board because there was no range. But on the other hand, we could quite easily have just misread it. So it's possible we got that wrong. So if we've misled anyone, then we apologise.
Being able to target units is definitely going to be handy, especially for picking off heroes. I was hoping to pick off the Evocator-Prime with Arcane Bolt or by screaming at him. Yeah,
the Briar Queen is actually shaping up to be one of the models I like fighting against the least, actually, because she can do damage in many phases.
I would say it's the -3 rend on her scream that's the big issue. It's good for killing off Sequitors.
Or indeed Evocators, actually. And also because she's not a frontline fighter, you're likely to keep her behind things. It's going to be hard to get to grips with her. I suppose we should talk about the terrain as well.
Yeah, we don't have the full rules for it. There are rules for cover. Because the rules we've got so far don't cover how you actually fight on terrain. Like if someone's at the edge of the second floor and someone's at the bottom, I assume you measure weapon range from the base. But I'm sure we'll find out soon enough.
It prevented me from piling in a Sequitor. That was the effect of the terrain on
made a slight difference. As it will be an issue getting over that little wall because it takes 2 inches of movement, 1 up, 1 down. Sequitors are such a huge base, you can't actually get across to the other side.
And whereas the Nighthaunt aren't impeded by it.
Yeah, just fly over.
Really.
And at last, the board isn't so flat. Makes it more visually interesting.
Part of my reason for actually moving up in the game was so that we actually would see the ruins on camera, because if I'd stayed put, it would have been rather like the previous board where all the terrain was at the end when the action didn't happen. And of course, the eagle-eyed will have noticed there's more printed terrain that we haven't got yet, so there will be more things on this board eventually.
Yeah, you get it fairly quickly as well, actually.
Yeah. And I actually really like these ruins. There's a lot of detail on them, which means that painting them is really straightforward.
Well, yeah, it's basically undercoat it all white, do an Agrex Earthshade wash, and then dry brush it with white, and you're done, basically, for most of it.
Just the amount of raised detail that you can dry brush means that it looks really good with minimal effort. But I think that's it for this episode, so if you enjoyed this video then please leave a like and subscribe down below. Leave your comments if you have any thoughts about the game or about tactics for any of these units, then we'd be interested to know, because we're still learning the ropes with Age of Sigmar. But other than that, we've been the Tabletop Donkeys, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye for now.